Red's looking sus. I was in the library. I didn't see anything. It was midnight. The air was still, the wind was slow, the moon was bright, and stars twinkled away brightly in the night sky. All the chambers, halls, and individual rooms of the Castle of Friendship were quiet, as no pony visited this late at night. And even if they did, the front door was locked from the inside. Even still, some pony visiting now was very unlikely, as the average equestrian pony would be asleep at this late hour, dreaming away blissfully under a starry night. However, this did not apply to a certain Princess of Friendship. Princess Twilight Sparkle, in contrast to the general population, would take advantage of this peace and quiet to catch up on her studying and personal reading. It had become quite different to do anything that she wanted to do in recent times because of a much heavier workload placed on her shoulders by her obtaining the title of Princess of Friendship. This bureaucratic burden of hers wears her down during the day, and even when the sun goes away, she's still surrounded by mountains of paperwork and scrolls that she needs to read through and or sign off on. And while she is grateful for the responsibility, she misses the times where she didn't need to worry about all this. There are times where she wishes that she could return to the normality of just being a student beneath her mentor Celestia, and there are even times that she misses her old library and the great memories that she had there. And of course, there are even times when things get rough, she wishes that she wasn't an alicorn. But here, at this late hour, she didn't need to be bothered by any of that, because as far as she's concerned, this is as close to her past as she can get. And in being honest with herself, Twilight didn't hate staying up this late that much for many different reasons, no less. Because it was late, and every pony was asleep, there was a lower chance of her getting interrupted by random incursions or infestations by hostile forces. Plus, on top of that, she enjoyed looking at Luna's night sky, which gave birth to a new hobby of hers. While she stayed awake through these late hours, she would count the shooting stars that screened across the sky while she'd read her books. Twilight had been doing these late-night reading sessions for quite some time now, so even her free time had become routine. It was just another part of her life that needed to be done. Of course, it was a routine that she enjoyed greatly, but it was still routine. Which, again, she didn't mind. After all, what is life without structure? But tonight, she would find that a routine was going to be broken in a very, odd way. Twilight had finished her paperwork hours ago, which now gave her plenty of time to indulge in the reading material in her personal section of the castle's library. She had curled herself up in a light blue blanket with stars and moons depicted on them, and very scientific descriptions and diagrams. And she had brought a lantern that had been lit by magic, which she placed on the table in front of her, which illuminated the immediate area surrounding her quite comfortably. There was a stack of books to her right, which she intended on reading, while an open one was placed covered down in front of the lantern, just before the edge of the table. The book in question was a thick hardcover of over 1,000 pages. Every page had paragraphs worth of text on them that seemed to ramble on about one topic in particular, a topic that Twilight had become quite familiar with over the years: random acts of teleportation and how to act against them. Twilight would murmur to herself as she gently read them out loud as to better understand what she was reading to begin with. After all, she was alone, and this was her library, so she could read how she pleased.
Wild magical teleportal instances may happen for no reason at all. While independent study groups tasked with understanding this phenomenon have come up short, wizards and mages of the Candlelit Institute of Magic say with certainty that these spots of teleportation dust are leftover residual energy from unicorn magic that pull themselves together and combine to form invisible clouds of teleportation feedback. These clouds of background magic usually make their way towards large conduits of raw magical energy. This means that they usually surround powerful individuals that hold a lot of magic inside their core to begin with. It revolves around them like gravity until eventually making contact with their horn. Then it funnels in through there and causes an accidental teleportation, which could send the individual anywhere in time and space. While this may spell doom for the individual in question, there are ways to prevent yourself from getting hit by these clouds in the first place. First, you must...
Twilight would suddenly stop reading out loud to herself as she saw something pass by her. It was out of the corner of her eye and it just barely got her attention, but it was noticeable enough that she looked away from the paragraph that she was reading. Twilight would look around the area curiously as whatever she saw wasn't there anymore. Maybe there was nothing there to begin with, and her eyes were just playing tricks on her because of the light of the lantern or something. She could have sworn that she saw something, though. It looked yellow, and it was small and fast. She would look out into the empty library, scanning the bookshelves, ladders, and other tables for something that she could match the description of what she saw out of the corner of her eye to.
Hello? Is anybody there?
She asked quietly. She shifted in her blanket as she peered her eyes from side to side. Calling out in the dark was just a precautionary method, so if something was there, hopefully it would have made a sound. To her, this was perfectly logical, so hearing nothing, she went back to reading.
First, you must...
Twilight saw the yellow speck fly past her again. This time it headed to the right of her. Twilight would waste no time looking around for it again. She knew that she saw something this time, and she knew where it went. So, using her wings, she shed her blanket and grabbed her lantern with her horn magic. She then jumped over the table and gave chase to this yellow mystery. Twilight was in a small cave of bookcases that encircled and encased her from the rest of the library. It was her own little place of peace from it all, and because of that, her view of the rest of the room was extremely limited. The only reason that she saw this yellow thing to begin with was because it passed in front of the entrance of her little hidey hole. But when Twilight popped out of this little space of hers, she could see everything that the circular library had to offer, including what she saw run past her. Speaking of, when Twilight shot her eyes to the right and looked down the line of bookshelves with her lantern on full brightness, she saw the mysterious yellow figure. She was expecting something bad like a changeling or a villain that needed to be defeated like so many others that came before, but when she laid her eyes on what this creature really was, she became more confused than worried. For what she found was a very petite yet stubby-looking bipedal creature dressed in a strange yellow suit that had covered its entire body. It had a large glass dome for a face, and a rectangular box-shaped apparatus hung off its back. It also had two floating hand-like protrusions that hovered at its chest height. She could tell that they were hands because she recognized the shape of them from the hands that she saw back in the human world. But these hands, these were different. They were missing a finger, and they weren't connected to arms, they were just floating about. The small yellow-suited figure was manipulating these hands into reaching forwards towards the bookshelf, where the hands would take books off the shelves and bring them to its glass dome of a face. It would then shake its head no at every book that it pulled before putting the books back.
Hi?
Twilight announced herself to the figure cautiously as to not startle it while giving it a friendly hello. The figure turned its head towards Twilight and looked her up and down, its glass dome of a face contorting and moving as if it were a pair of eyes. It seemed to be focusing on her. Its dome then became more friendly looking, as if it were happy to see her, while it used its free hand to wave at her, while it mumbled something that sounded like a hello. It then turned back to pulling books off the shelf, looking at them, and then returning to the books after it was done. Twilight watched this creature carefully as it continued to inspect every book on the shelf. It seemed confused, or troubled that it couldn't find the book that it was looking for. She could also deduce that it didn't speak very well, as the suit it was wearing muffled its voice. However, it was still able to talk, despite this, and better yet, it understood her.
Can I help you find the book that you're looking for?
Twilight was going to ask how this figure had managed to get inside her library to begin with, but she figured that she would cross that bridge when she got to it. She figured for now that she would help this individual before asking any harder questions, while at the same time earning its trust by helping it find the book that it wanted. The yellow biped looked back to Twilight and nodded its head. It proceeded to reach into its back pocket and retrieved a folded piece of paper. It opened the piece of paper and presented it to her. It was a strip of lined notebook paper with a picture of a book drawn on it in crayon. The book in question to Twilight looked vaguely similar to a book that was indeed on the shelf it was rummaging through. Her eyes shifted over to that book, and she used her magic to levitate it off the shelf and down to the figure. The creature took the book, and its open hand looked at it and appeared to smile through its glass dome. It then put the piece of paper back into its back pocket and took the book in both hands. It looked over it momentarily before it turned and began to sprint away from her and headed towards the exit.
Hey, wait! Where are you going?
Twilight called out to the creature. But before it could answer, it already left the library and entered the castle, shutting the door of the room behind itself. Twilight, confused about what had just happened, would immediately give chase. Alright, Twilight's looking sus. I think we need to vote her off because, you know, no one ever acts that confused. I think she's the imposter. On a side note, this is very, very enjoyable though. Now let's go over to our enjoyable donators. Top donators, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, J Tin Man, and Darkside. CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, RuneScythe 9852, dospo, Ryanny Dragonwolf, Secret Moon, Tallrascha, The Toilet Snake, Cerberus, Starlight Glimmer, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, Teal K. Anderson, TV Killer, and John Becker. Thank you all very much for watching this video. Live life to the fullest, and catch those damn imposters.